From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
Well, you know, it's really too bad that there's nothing going on in the world that we could talk about, Kurt.
Yeah, I know. Every week we come in here and it's like, man, we wish we had something to talk about.
Well, you know, in the Biden days, you basically got one story a week. Yeah. And so that's all you had to focus on.
And the one story a week was that Biden's old and he's not doing anything.
Exactly. So we welcome you back to the podcast. I am Dale Carter. He's Kurt Wheeler. We're brought to you in part by my good friend Bob Watson, Blue Springs local State Farm agent for 50 years. Get a rate quote, 7th and Main in Blue Springs. Call him up, 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life insurance. Bundle your home and car insurance and save. You've heard that from Coach Andy Reid, Bundle Ruski. And Bob Watson's the guy who will get that done for you. He can rep you in Missouri or Kansas, and he's available on the phone at 816-229-7878. My insurance guy could become your insurance guy, Bob Watson.
Tremendous people.
Tell me all the ways that they can jump on board here at Dale Carter's America.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing. That's what we would love for you to do. You can check us out on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, drop a comment if you're listening right now. It really helps us out with the algorithm and getting us in front of more people. Share these videos. Send them to your friends. Text, email, snail mail.
Yeah.
Send a snail mail letter with a YouTube link to this video to your grandma.
And you people who disagree with us, that's fine. We love disagreement, but come up with something better than Orange Man Bad. I mean, I've been challenging some people on the podcast page. Okay, what's your solution? And we'll get into that in a minute here. And they don't have one. It's like crickets. If they can't say, well, Trump's an asshole or Trump's bad or blah, blah, blah. They don't have any solutions. And that's the problem that the Democrats face right now. They're in the wilderness. They have no solutions and they have no leader. But we have our own problems on the Republican side. We had wanted to do a segment called, Epstein's Island. Who are all the names that were on Epstein's Island? But so far, Kurt, that's been a nothing burger. Pam Bondi, who is the new Attorney General, calling out Kash Patel, the FBI director. First of all, he works for her, right? The FBI director works for the Attorney General. Second, aren't they on the same team?
Yeah, that whole thing has been kind of a cluster, but
she's calling him out, saying, I expect this on my desk by yada yada.
Yeah, it seems like she's just passing the buck, and then Kash Patel, I guess, is passing the buck. I don't know. He was the one that said day one. I mean, that was like his whole thing. Day one, that the files are going to be released.
That was Trump's thing. Day one, we're going to get to, and they both work for Donald Trump. And he's the one who said, we're going to get the JFK files out, the Martin Luther King files out. We're going to get the Epstein files out. And still, I mean, it may happen, but to be continued at this point.
Yeah. And they had this whole thing that I guess it was yesterday where they did this quote unquote release, and they had all these influencers out at the White House. So they give them this binder and they're all holding up the binder.
Yeah.
And smiling for the camera and everything. And, people are crapping on them. They didn't know. I mean, they were just they were given the binder, and then they're in meetings with the president, the vice president, and etc. You can't necessarily blame them, but turns out that everything that was in the binder is just what we already knew, right? I mean, it was just all the stuff that was already released, and it was all redacted. You look at the pages, it's like black. Everything's redacted.
Well, so I get they want to redact the names of the victims. I get that. But, let's get to the bottom of it. Let's name names. Let's find out who all these people were. And as I said on our podcast page, I have not been to Epstein's Island, but I did sail past it once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, we went on vacation down in St. John in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
And St. John doesn't have an airport.
Oh,
it doesn't have much of anything. I mean, it's like a third world country now. I told my wife that. Oh, but the beaches are beautiful. But there's no convenience store. I can't go get a cup of coffee. I mean, I have needs. So to go there, you fly into St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands,
right,
and then you take a boat over to St. John, and we went right by Epstein's Island.
Did you see the what is it? The box, the striped the striped box that he has there. Isn't that a thing?
I couldn't see that. I saw the American flags. There are American flags all over the place. But yeah, that's all I saw of it. And that's my story. And I'm going to stick to it until they come out with any files with my name on it. I don't think they will.
No,
but there you go. All right. So we move forward with a lot on this podcast today. Obviously, there was a smackdown in the Oval. We're going to talk about that. My special guest today is a dear, dear friend of mine. We go back, gosh, almost 30 years. Darron Story, who's a radio personality here in the Kansas City area at one time, was a personality on KFKF, and we've kept in touch over the years. We don't agree politically, and I think those are the kinds of people that you need to seek out and talk to and have that conversation, so we don't end up just talking in a circular firing squad, if you will, of, your guy's bad. Well, what's your answer? I don't know. Your guy's bad.
Right.
We had solutions when Joe Biden was president, right? It wasn't just Joe Biden's old and crapping his pants. It was where he did things we didn't agree with. We had solutions.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think so anyways.
Well, we did. And now we got a president who might execute a lot of that plan. So we are brought to you again by Midwest GI Health and Wellness. Dr. Mark K. Taramina, MD, FASGE, FACG, AGAF, and FACP. I have no idea what any of that means.
Is that all in the ad copy? That's a lot of letters.
That's in his
man.
signature line.
Wow.
Yeah. So he runs Midwest GI Health and Wellness, and the bottom line is he's saving lives, because we know that colon cancer kills, and early detection is the key. We've talked for years about 50 years old being the year that you need to get that first colonoscopy, because colon cancer is happening more often and is more vicious. We've moved that bar down to 45. Get that colonoscopy. Get screened. If you've got anything going on down there, we'll catch it early and do something about it, because once it festers and grows, it's deadly. And we want to keep you around. Dr. Mark Taramina, Midwest GI Health and Wellness, on the web at midwestgihealth.com. They're in Lee's Summit, Missouri, 816-836-2200. If you're watching or listening and you live anywhere else in the world, get with a GI doctor that you respect. Talk to your own doctor about it. Whatever you do, get screened, because colon cancer will kill you. Something else that might kill you is waiting in line forever to get answers about Medicare. I know that's on Trump's list of things to fix and make better, but it still is what it is. And if you're closing in on 65, or you've got a relative or friend who's going to be 65, you need to get in front of Kirk Doris and Lori Hocker. They're at Medicare Simplified KC. You can reach them on the phone at 816-701-6661. Their website is MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. And I'm somebody who, I'm going to be 62 in September, so 3.5 years away from Medicare for me. And a lot of folks our age, Kurt, kind of look at that as like, oh, I don't have to work anymore and carry our company's hideous insurance. And you know what that's like.
I'm not even on it now, so.
It's hideous. Hideous. And we look at Medicare as this checkered flag at the end of the race, but it has problems, and you need supplements. Which one? Which plan? Which part? That's why you need Medicare Simplified KC. They'll come to you. You go to them. It doesn't matter. Just make that appointment. 816-701-6661. Kirk Doris and Lori Hocker, were pleased to have them with us on Dale Carter's America. Okay, to the Oval Office. And I put up like a 10-minute clip that has the entire thing, but this thing is going to post by Monday. So everybody by Monday is going to know what happened here. That Zelensky went to the White House. Donald Trump thought he had a deal, right?
Yeah.
The rare earth minerals, and you take this deal, we're going to put American boots on the ground, not soldiers, but people who are going to go get these minerals. It takes care of two things. One, we get repaid for the billions of dollars that we've put into this country. Second, Vladimir Putin will think 3 times before he attacks where Americans are on the ground doing work. I just don't think he would. I don't think he's got it in him. So this was an interesting solution that Donald Trump crafted, and he thought he had an agreement when Zelensky came to the White House, and the wheels came off right there in the Oval Office, in front of the reporters, in front of God, in front of everybody. It's a moment in time that you would never see with a president other than Donald Trump.
100%.
Or
100%.
Teddy Roosevelt. I think Teddy Roosevelt, if he were in this time, it might have happened with him. Because, it's interesting. What's going to come out of this is people are saying that, well, Trump, called out Zelensky in front of the world. This just shows he's in bed with Putin. Trump will tell you he's not in bed with either one of them. He wants to know what the American interest is.
Right.
And it reminds me of when there was a coal strike in this country and Teddy Roosevelt brought in the coal workers and the coal company owners. And he said, I'm not with either one of you. I'm with the American people. What is your solution for the American people? So that's where Trump is. And you people who say orange man bad just don't get what's happening.
Well, and real quick, too, I mean, people forget all of the measures that Trump took against Putin in his first term.
Yeah.
All the sanctions and all the, tough talk about you going to, I mean, there's a reason that Putin didn't do what he did during Trump's administration because there was ramifications and he knew about it.
Kurt, go back to some of the back and forth I had with some of the keyboard warriors on this, because first of all, they're rewriting history and they're just dead wrong. And then when I call them out and say, okay, what's your solution? Then we hear crickets. And one of those said that it's Trump's fault that Putin invaded Ukraine. And I'm like, how do you see it that way? And his answer was, well, Trump had laid the groundwork for this and it was too late to get out. Biden had no choice, almost like the Bay of Pigs with JFK and Eisenhower. And I said, okay, that may be your point, but here's factual history. The pullout in Afghanistan, which all of the generals told Joe Biden was a bad idea, happened in August of 2021. So you are telling me that from January 20th to August, Joe Biden couldn't put a pin in that and say, I don't think we want to do that. I mean, how many Trump policies did he cancel on day one?
Right.
And yet this one was too big a lift for him?
Yeah. I mean, it's really simple. You look at, he went, what was it? Not Donbass, but the other region that he, under Obama. Crimea, yeah, under Obama. Then nothing under Trump.
Right.
And then Donbass, Kiev, full on, invasion, if you want to call it that, under Biden. So, I mean, do we really have to look any further than that? I mean, can we just like look at the objective thing here and just say, hey, look, nothing happened under Trump. I wonder why, There
are people out there who aren't going to look at it that. They're just going to say orange man bad. And we're going to show you a little bit of the smackdown. I'm sure you've seen it by now. But what gets me is all of my friends who are on the other side, they're putting up flags of Ukraine. What is their solution? We're in a stalemated war that's been stalemated for 3 years, right? World War II, after the United States got involved, was less than 3 years. World War II on stages from, the Southeast Asia to Europe. It was done in 2.5 years, right? My math right on that, 42 to 45?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So this has continued. It's not going to go anywhere. Ukraine's running out of bodies to put on the front line. So what is their solution? Is their solution to keep doing what we're doing? Put more billions in there?
Yeah.
If you don't put more...
I think it is. I mean, I think honestly their solution is to just send more men to the slaughter for no freaking reason.
Well, that's Ukraine. What about the United States? What people in this country...
But we're doing it. I mean, maybe it's not our men, but that we're facilitating it. We're sending them the weapons. We're sending them the money. And then they're using that money to send their young men, military-age men, just into a meat grinder. So we're facilitating that. I mean, it may not be our people, but it's us that's doing it.
Right. So you've got a Republican Congress right now, and Donald Trump is the leader. They're not going to give them more money. That's done.
Yeah.
So the money's off the table. What's the solution?
I'll just leave that alone.
Seriously, do you have one?
Do I have one? I mean, I think there needs to be a deal. I think the idea that Ukraine is going to get everything that they want is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. I mean, you look at, I'm not going to get into the whole thing. We talked about it. I'll save it for another day because I have a whole list of basically why I'm pro-Russia at this point, more or less. I'll just tease that. But yeah, I mean, you can look at the parts of Ukraine that have ethnically been Russian. There's Russian Orthodox all through Ukraine.
Right.
And so, like, the idea that Ukraine is just going to keep everything that it wants, a smaller country with a smaller military, with a smaller government that is allied with NATO, maybe not part of NATO, but allied with NATO, and pushing up against Russia's borders, which they created a hard line back in as at least 2001, pretty much since the Cold War. They've said, this is what we want. You know, we're disbanding the Soviet Union. All these member states can go back to their own nations and do what they want, but don't no incursion of NATO on our borders. And then since then, you've had all these countries that have joined NATO and pushed up against the Russian border. So yeah, they're going to get some of what they want. They're going to get some of what they want. But, you know, especially these places that are ethnically Russian, you know, the people that live there are allied with Russia in Ukraine, you know? So like, how can you just expect you're going to just force them to like renounce their Russian heritage, their citizenship? I don't think so. Like, you can't really do that.
Well, okay, so that's where we are right now. We promised you we'd show you a little bit of the video if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, you've been living under a rock. But the smackdown in the Oval Office.
And I'm going to kind of skip around here a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think the juicy stuff starts kind of towards the middle somewhere.
And they are worried that you align
engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thump.
Our part was killed people, you know, situation deal. After that, yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? That you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I have actually.
Can I just pause?
Sure.
I gotta say something. Just his body language. He's so smug. First of all, he's not wearing a suit. He's wearing his little fake military fatigues. He's LARPing. And one of the reporters points that out later. I don't know if you've seen that clip, but one of the reporters is like, hey, are you going to wear a suit?
Yeah.
But he's sitting there with his arms crossed. He's like shaking his head. Dude, you're in the Oval Office. Like, we've given you $160 billion, and you're going to come in here, I want more money.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Well, you're not getting more money, so that's the bottom line.
Let's keep it going because this gets good.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
That's going to set Trump off. Here we go.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
We're going to feel very good, very strongly.
We'll feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I answer?
This is so
you've done a lot
good,
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks.
You haven't been alone.
No, they haven't been alone.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion. We gave you military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military. If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over In 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
It would have been.
Maybe less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long.
the hands, dude. See, I think it's good for the American. All right, let me keep it going. This is A+ television right here.
You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you'd take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you
that wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Here we go.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins.
I love that. He says, Obama gave you sheets, I gave you javelins. And then he says, in fact, the statement is Obama gave you sheets and I gave you javelins.
You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the whole, I mean,
exactly.
It's just so good.
Yeah. And, they call Trump a warmonger. He's the one trying to stop it.
Exactly.
And he's the realist who says, Ukraine, you cannot win. And you certainly can't even stay in the fight without our billions and billions of dollars. So again, to you people who are putting up the Ukrainian flag, what the hell is your solution? What is your solution?
Yeah. And it's all, I said this before we started, but it's all just orange man bad. That's the reason that they support Ukraine. That's the reason that they oppose Russia. They have no nuance whatsoever. They just see that Trump, is challenging Zelensky, and so they put up their flag, and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
And for those who say, well, America's giving up its role as the world leader, you turn a blind eye to what's happening in Africa. Look what's happening on that continent.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about what China's doing to their minorities, and how they're raping the lands and taking minerals out of that area. No, they've always got to find a way to get back to Orange Man bad and now Elon bad. Elon is his partner in crime, and they're bad. And why are they bad? Because they're rich guys, and all they want is more money for themselves.
It's just totally made up.
It is.
And here's Trump's statement post-meeting. So apparently they kicked him out of the White House.
They did.
And then he put out a statement. We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I've determined that President Zelensky is not ready for a peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. Boom.
Boom. I mean, again, come back at me with an argument on that other than Orange Man bad, because Orange Man bad from now on, I'm just going to ignore. I'm not even going to engage with you people on that. We have a lot more to come on the big podcast today, including our special guest. But first, let's tell you about Michael Schroer, because he is en fuego, on fire. I mean, I've been looking at his posts on Facebook, Kurt. He is selling things left and right. And if you want to sell your home, this is the guy you need. Michael Schroer. Reach out to him. He is with Remax Elite in Lee's Summit. His cell phone, email, website, it's all there. The new phone number for him is 816-373-8400. His cell phone is 816-520-9342. Occasionally on our podcast page, I'll put up some properties that he's sold to give you an idea of what he's doing out there. But the bottom line is, if this spring you're ready for an upgrade or maybe a downgrade in your housing situation, maybe you need just a starter home, maybe you need more bedrooms, maybe you need to downsize because your kids have all moved out, maybe you've got a piece of property. This is where he is really an expert, Kurt, is finding that piece of dream property where you want to build something, because he's also a builder.
Nice.
Great guy, Michael Schroer, real estate pro with Remax Elite in Lee's Summit. Give him a call, especially if you got the itchy feet, because you want to buy something new. And then when you buy it, you're more than likely, unless you're really, really rich like Donald Trump or Elon Musk, you're going to have to get a mortgage, right? That's where we go to the Red Carpet Lender, the redcarpetlender.com. That's my buddy Chad Taylor. Chad and I go way, way back. And in fact, when it was time to refinance my house, Chad was my first and only call. And it's interesting, when he does a close, he has this rolled up red carpet. And he rolls out the red carpet.
Oh, really?
That's where
he's a showman.
He's a showman. Well, he does karaoke in a lot of bars around town, too. So people know him for that. But the redcarpetlender.com, that's how you get Chad. No upfront hard credit hit to see if you can get approved for a home loan. That's an old wives' tale. If you're a veteran, he wants to thank you for your service by waiving lender fees, free appraisals for first-time home buyers, police and fire department employees, along with school district employees. He has so many programs to fit your needs and budget, and sometimes, depending on what kind of financial mess you've got, your mortgage could be the key to getting you out of it. You don't need perfect credit. He can go as low as a 580 credit score. He's licensed in Missouri and Kansas. He'll come to you. You go to him. It's kind of the same with all of our sponsors here, but it starts with a visit to the redcarpetlender.com. The redcarpetlender.com is my pal, Chad Taylor. Look at that. Good-looking guy.
Yep. Can I say something about that too, real quick?
Yeah.
People point to the housing market and, they'll say, well, prices are up, prices are inflated, and things are starting to come down a little bit. But people got to remember too, especially for us and for the majority of people, for Chad and for Michael and the majority of people watching this podcast, we live in Kansas City. Kansas City is a hot market right now. And I think it was last year, 2024, and the year before that, and maybe even the year before that. I think it was 24. We were like number 6 or number 5 out of the top 10 like best markets for real estate in the country. So, I mean, this is a fantastic place to buy. You can find really cool properties at good deals, direct sellers, and just really good deals on properties. So don't let that dissuade you, because now, especially in Kansas City, now is a good time to be looking.
We're going to have Chad. I think we've had Chad on as a guest before,
right?
Like
in the early days.
Yeah, I think we're going to have him on again, just talk, especially as we get into spring, and we're in March now, which is awesome. We'll have Chad on to talk about that market. But remember, everything is relative too. If prices are up, you're going to get more for your house, and the other house is going to be expensive too. When prices are down, you'll get less for your house, but then the market, is on fire that way. So it's all relative here. So we have a special guest coming in, and I am just absolutely thrilled to have him on the podcast. I was a guest on his not that long ago. He is my dear friend, Darron Story. Darron, good morning.
Good morning, Dale. How are you?
Turnabout is fair play. I was on your podcast, and now you're on my podcast.
I know. I love that. It's like a home and home.
A little different deal, though. We try and solve the world's problems on this podcast. On yours, we basically just talked about our history together, and we can go through some of that here at the beginning.
Sure. I don't know. I have a few ideas, like maybe if we had a time machine or something like that, we could go back in time and tinker some things. Now we know what was going to happen in the future, and maybe not do some things. I don't know. But let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Darron worked for KFKF way back in the day. We met at a job fair. Was that the Adams Mark Hotel?
It was at the Adams Mark Hotel, yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
And, you probably looked at me like, you want me on a country station? What's the deal there? But I fell in love with that voice, man. You got the voice.
Thank you. And I didn't even know I had the voice. It was interesting because I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was dating a woman, And she asked me that. She said, "Have you ever thought about being on radio?" I said, "No,
Yeah.
no, you could be on the radio." And I was like, "Ooh, okay." And it wasn't maybe a month later that I saw the ad in the Star for that job fair.
Yeah.
And it was just it was mainly stations in rural parts of our metropolitan area, and you were like the biggest station there. And, I dropped off some tapes and then you called me.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, "Dale, you remember I'm black?"
My history, Darron, goes back to when I was a young kid. And I think I told you this on the podcast. I went to Catholic grade school, right?
Yeah.
I'd never seen a black person up close until I went to an inner city high school. And it changed my entire life view because I was on the football team, right? And you can't be on a football team with people of mixed races without it changing your worldview.
Yeah.
And it changed my worldview. And I have subscribed to Dr. King's speech to my heart that I judge people for the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And you have content overflowing, my friend. I mean, you've gone on to do some other things. You're with Cumulus Media now. You're a man of the cloth.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Who the thunk? Dale, my faith journey has been a long and winding road to Penn, Lennon, and McCarthy. I know that I've always been a man of faith. My parents didn't go to church, but they made us go to church, which is, I always look back and say that was kind of weird, but they always made us go to church. But, I've met a lot of people that grew up in that same tradition where their parents didn't go to church, but they made their kids go to church. So maybe that's a Gen X thing. I don't know. But I knew that there was something bigger than me. I always knew that. And then probably 1990 is when I had my first real encounter with God. And I was in a bad place, in a dark place. And I remember driving down I-94 West when I lived in Detroit. And I was coming from someplace where, I shouldn't have been coming from. Let's just say that. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of dread. And I just kept praying in my mind, "God, just let me get home. Just let me get home. Just let me get home." Because I thought I was about to die. It was a really weird feeling, ominous feeling that I had in my heart. And I just got home and I ran to my backyard, fell on my knees. And my prayer wasn't the standard evangelical prayer where you say, "God, come into my heart," and all that stuff. I just said, "God, I can't manage my life anymore. I just can't. It's just, what am I doing?" And that was kind of the beginning, but then it was still, I had things that I wanted to do. I had my own agenda. And finally, in 2018, my pastor at the time, Nicole Richardson, stopped me after coming out of a committee meeting and at my church in South Broadland Presbyterian Church in Kansas City. And she said, "Darron, God has put this in my spirit that He has a bigger calling for you." And I looked at her, I said, "Pastor, I appreciate that, but I'm good. I'm not really interested in a bigger calling. I just want to go to church. I don't want to lead anything. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to make any decisions. I just want to go to church and worship God." And basically what happened from that moment on, the next year was me wrestling with God about what I should do next. He's calling me. I know He's calling me, and I keep saying, "No, God, no, God." And then you finally get to the point where you say yes. And so I went to seminary for a couple of years, which is really hard because I still had a big job. I was a vice president of business development for a company, traveling a lot. Excuse me. And, I'm driving from business trips and I got my laptop open in my passenger seat going to school while I'm driving from one destination to the other. But I got through it in about 26 months and came out, and I was what we call in the Presbyterian Church a CRE, or commission ruling elder, or commission lay pastor. But during that time, Dale, I started preaching at these small churches in rural parts of our community, like in Leavenworth and Corder, Missouri, which is near Higginsville, a little east of Kansas City, and Chanute, Kansas. And I'm going around and preaching at these small churches some of them are dying, to be honest with you, because of attrition. But I started connecting with, basically rural white people, which was, I'm coming there in their pulpit and having to deliver these messages. And it made me realize that I had some biases that I had internally about people in these areas. And that was an amazing thing to face those. And then you realize that if we decide to go ahead and encounter these situations, that we have way more in common than we have different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted you on the podcast. And, as a prepper for me, I listened to your show on KCMO this morning. I don't even know if you know which ones air when. But you
I just kind of do them.
I can't remember what her name was. Constitutional scholar, though. Talking about
Kim Whaley. Whaley.
And I'd love to have her on this podcast. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, he's starting a podcast, and he's gotten this brilliant idea that he wants to have people on who don't agree with him so that we can talk like humans. We've been doing that on our podcast. We've had people on who don't necessarily agree with our worldview, and it's like we can talk like humans and come to some sort of middle ground. So I want to put you in that bullpen, and I want to bring you on occasionally to talk about things. And the thing that I want to get to, the heart of the matter today, is the Ralph Yarl story, because that hit the news again because Andrew Lester died before he could be convicted and all that. And I guess the question that I have for you, because I do the news on KFKF, and every day it seems like, almost every day, we have gun violence. You do the windows too?
What? Do you do the windows there too?
I do. Are you kidding me? I do everything there. I take out the trash. I mean, I have to catch mice on occasion. I mean, our building is something else. But every day in the news, and it seems to me, if you looked at a geographic area, it's bordered by I-435, Brush Creek, 71 Highway, and I-70. A little bit out of that area sometimes, but there's black on black crime every day. There are murders almost every day. So my question to you is, if Ralph Yarl had knocked on an elderly black gentleman's home and been shot by mistake, would this have been a national story?
No, it would not have been.
And why is that? Why are we there? Why are so many people, and I'm going to throw names out here like the Reverend Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, why does it seem like they are lying in wait for something that fits the narrative that they can blow up?
Right. Well, I think to preface my answer, one of the things that I have learned over the last several years, especially, is that two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
It would not have been a national story because it would have.
Would it have been anything beyond a one-day story?
Yeah, it might have been just the first 5 minutes. That first 5 minutes during the news that you get, and when it says. You show the video of the police tape in a neighborhood in urban core of Kansas City. It probably would have been that. And that's sad. The other thing is that we still need to recognize that there are some disparagements that exist. And I live that life. I still live in urban Kansas City. I live on 36 in Virginia, which is from the old studios. You guys are not the old place that we used to be, but I don't know, I'm a 7-minute drive from Grand Street Cafe where we used to be. We are not dealing with the root causes of why this is happening. We don't talk about them enough. We don't talk about the fact that when I was growing up, even though I grew up in the same neighborhood as I basically live in now, the Kansas City, Missouri School District had 67,000 kids in it, a thriving school district. We had feeder schools going into middle schools and the high schools. And even though the district was still segregated, it was still a very good school district. We were not, we knew we had opportunity, and really our goal was to get out of where we were. The goal in my generation was, I want to get to Raytown. I want to get to Grandview. I want to get to Lee Summit. So I have to apply myself in school here so that I can get out. Now, I think that was also part of, when I started school, I was 1970, so it was 2 years after Dr. King was assassinated,
right.
after Robert Kennedy was assassinated. So we're coming out of a pretty tumultuous time right out of the 60s. But we had some goals, and our school district gave us an opportunity to reach those goals.
The interesting thing you point out, you started school in 1970. That was before Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education in 1978. And we have seen since the Department of Education began, the schools get worse, especially in the urban core. How many millions of dollars, probably billions of dollars, have we put into Kansas City and St. Louis, and it's not helping?
You're right. And you can't just throw money at problems. I don't care what you believe or what your worldview is. Money does not solve problems. We have teachers who don't want to teach. I feel like when I was growing up, I had teachers who were there because they were committed to teaching young people, that they were about it. They weren't there because, I can't get a job in the thing that I wanted to do, so I get a teaching certificate and I go and teach. And you have a lot of that in our educational system now. These people wanted to teach, and especially in my schools, when I had white teachers, black teachers, everybody, you knew they wanted to be there if they were there. They could have went anywhere and taught. So I knew that they were committed to our community, our neighborhoods, our kids. So I think there's a lot of nuance to this question, but I also think that our media doesn't help because I grew up in a time, and you did too, Dale, where people gave you the news and then full stop. They just gave you the news.
I heard you say this morning at about 5:30.
Just give me the news. I mean, I don't care what you think. I still feel that way. I've always been that way. Like, there's a place for that. But now it's been overrun with people telling us what they think or how they feel, instead of just giving us the raw data, factual data.
Well, I can tell you the factual data that I report almost every morning at KFKF. Officers were called to yada yada residence. Black male was killed by another black male, and the investigation continues. That's the end of the story. And when we talk to police officers in that area, they say we're arresting the same people over and over and over again. There's a turnstile. And I mean, if you're going to do this, you should do it in Jackson County, because, you'll probably be back out on the street again.
Well, no place to put them, right? No place.
I have a theory.
You can't prosecute them. You can't prosecute them because of, and I'm hoping that
why can't you prosecute them?
Well, I do believe that part of it was there was no place to put them, prioritizing crime. And I know there's been a problem in Jackson County about not just violent crime, but nonviolent crime, burglaries and thefts and things like that. There's no place to put them. And I believe they're working on something at 40 Highway.
Building a bigger jail.
Building a bigger jail. Not sure if that is still the answer, because I believe that we have to get to people, and I don't care if you're black or white, Dale. Studies, there's plenty of data out there shows that, those tweener years when the kid is 11, 12, 13 years old, if you don't get them, and here's how I know, Dale. I have a son that's incarcerated. My 27-year-old son, Jonathan. And he is not the, quintessential story that people like to, didn't come from a single parent home, wasn't poor. I was present as his dad.
Sure.
I was, and I tell people that I have a son that's incarcerated, and they kind of make a look at, what, really? I'm like, yeah, because, no one's immune.
No one's immune. I'm not going to name a name here, but somebody you and I know very well that we worked with at KFKF who had 3 sons, the middle of which went on to get a doctorate and was a teacher, is incarcerated over something. Wow. That's just something that you never see coming. So that happens. But this happens every day. And if it happened in Blue Springs, where I live, if there were a daily murder, it would get people's attention and something would be done about it. Now, I have, and we've had other guests on, and I've given them my prescription for this. Are you ready for my prescription?
What is your prescription, Dan?
If you commit a crime with a gun, you go away for a very long time. Not plead it down to something else, not, you're going to do whatever 2 years and be back out on the street and all that. You go away for a very long time, a maximum minimum. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not a math guy. But if you commit a crime with a gun, you go away for a significant amount of time. Because does
it matter whether they use it or not? But if it's with a gun,
if you commit a crime with a gun, I'm trying to do something about gun violence here that goes beyond. We need another gun law, because another gun law is not fixing this. So if you commit a crime with a gun, you go away for a very long time. You murder somebody with a gun, okay? Not mitigating circumstances, not self-defense, not if you murder someone, which you and I know happens nearly every day in Kansas City. If you murder somebody with a gun, you go away for life. No possibility of parole. We will fix this in a generation. If people know that there are consequences to their actions, they will stop. I don't think the death penalty is a deterrent. I'm a pro-life guy on both ends of the spectrum. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't believe in abortion. So I'm a pro-life guy, and I think I'm consistent in that view. But if you have committed the ultimate crime, which is murdering another human being, you have made it clear that you have no place in polite society. You don't belong in that neighborhood. And if you get enough people out of that neighborhood who have committed the ultimate crime, this problem will fix itself. And build as many prisons as possible. And if you need to clear space by taking nonviolent offenders and putting them someplace else, put them someplace else. But the ultimate crime, in my view, is killing another human being.
So, Dale, let me ask you this, though. When it comes to, and so I'm going to talk to you a little bit let's talk a little bit about the disparagement of African Americans being incarcerated versus their counterparts. And I'm not just talking about white people, I'm just talking about everybody.
Right.
Do you think if you did that, would that change the disparagement of that number of people, the obviously more African Americans, incarcerated African American men especially, versus their counterparts? Do you think that would change that number, or meaning that would even it out? Because it seems like for the same crimes, African Americans are getting my son is one of them, and he's a nonviolent offender. He didn't have a gun. He stole a car.
Okay. How long did he get, if I can ask?
He's been in since 21.
So this 22. Is 4 years. How much longer?
January 28.
Okay. That to me feels long for stealing a car if a gun wasn't involved.
That's super long. Like, that doesn't fit the crime.
No. But to your point, Lady Justice has a blindfold on and should have a blindfold on, okay? And so I'm not saying, I don't care whether you're black, white, brown, green, striped, it doesn't matter to me. If you've committed this crime, this is the punishment. If you commit this ultimate crime, this is the punishment. And it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, and it shouldn't matter to me either. But since I have had experience in this place, I've been able to see things that probably I wouldn't have seen if my son wasn't in the system. And I'm just telling you, it's not equal. Equal justice under the law is not happening.
Darren, you live in that neighborhood. Don't you want something done?
No, I do.
What is the solution?
Totally want something.
What's the solution?
Well, I do believe going back to education, going back to I think, and this doesn't really count for our neighborhoods, but I'm just going to say this: when your self-worth has been damaged, and you feel like you don't have a chance, you're going to do things to survive. And a lot of what is happening is that people are responding out of hopelessness and feeling like they don't have the opportunity to survive. Drop many of these people in different circumstances that you're seeing on the news, in different circumstances with different opportunities. I do believe they would have different outcomes. But there's a level of hopelessness There's lack of investment, and I don't mean in our schools. I just mean lack of investment in the places where these young people are coming up. And I don't live far away. I stay here because I want somebody to see me walking around these neighborhoods and may say, wow, who's that guy? Right? What is he doing? I want them to see my kids. We purposely raised our kids in these neighborhoods so that they could be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have left these neighborhoods, and I get it, because I remember when I was growing up, like I said earlier, when I was growing up, our goal was to get out. Everything is, I was 3 years old when the riots happened.
Yeah.
And the riots were like, literally, we were like 8 or 9 blocks from the riots where I grew up, And so the goal was to get out. I remember living in a neighborhood where I had 2 grocery stores down the street from me, a dry cleaners, a drugstore, a barbershop. Everything that we needed in our neighborhood was right there. My mother would give me $20, go give me a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. And we were in community. And then I blinked and everything was gone down. Yeah. And so then everybody wanted to go. It needed to go to the land of milk and honey with the, where there's a mall, Bannister Mall, Oak Park Mall. That was the land of milk and honey, living close to a mall.
Yeah.
And so we leave, we disinvest, and I'm not talking about the city disinvesting. I'm talking about people disinvest, and then what's left is laid waste. And somebody has to stay. And these people stay, and they come outside their house, and they don't see hope. They don't see a future. And so primal instincts kick in. And we have what we have. And
I hope we fix it at some point, because
we have to. And we have to do it together. Dale.
Selfishly, I work in Westport, and I'm there at like 2:30 in the morning, pulling into a parking garage with my head on a swivel going, please don't let this be the day. So you know what I'm talking about there.
I do. I
walked into the radio station one morning, and an armed robbery was taking place. I thought we were moving again. The doors were propped open, computers were everywhere, and we had an armed robbery going on. So I've been in the middle of this. We've had gunfire at our radio station. There are bullet holes in the walls. So,
I hear what you're saying about gun laws. I don't think we do an effective job of enforcing what we do have.
Right.
That's part of our problem.
Yeah.
That's part of our problem is that we want to make more laws, but we're making them because it's, ooh, look at me. I got a law passed. I think a lot of laws get passed because lawmakers want people to look at them.
They pat themselves on the back, Darron, and the people who break the gun laws just sit there and laugh.
Yeah. So that's not it. But should there be some certain guns not be on the street? Yeah, I think there's certain things. But enforce what's already there. Get that right. Instead of using it as an opportunity to pat yourself on the back, like you said, and said, I got a law passed, or I have a law in session and we're debating it. And the idea of these people going to work for us has become laughable, in my opinion. I just don't feel like I'm being represented by anybody. Yeah. I mean, everybody is out for themselves, and
you got a place on this podcast, and I'm going to have to wrap this segment here, but I want you to come back because we got a lot of issues that we got to fix, and we got to have conversations like this in order to get them done.
Yes, sir. And I will come anytime you ask, sir. I mean, I sit in front of this microphone because of you, sir. People hear this
like
voice.
I apologize in some ways for that. So, quick plug time. I know that you are the PA voice for a university.
Yeah, Ottawa University. Go Braves. Yeah.
And your son is going to play there.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy for a couple of reasons. One, me and being dropped in, God dropping me in Ottawa, Kansas is a whole nother podcast. Two, I just accidentally got that gig. I just happened to be talking to the athletic director and told her, hey, you ever your guy, whoever it is, ever, has laryngitis or gets sick, call me. I've done it before. I did it at my old high school.
I know.
And then 15 minutes later, I get a call from her assistant, and she said, Miss Pastor Story, are you available this Saturday to do the PA at our game? And I'm like, sure, why not? Let me check. And then the next part of the conversation was, well, are you available for the entire season?
Right. That's how it happens. You get sucked into that whole thing. And I will say this publicly on the record, that when the Kansas City Chiefs came to me and they said, we've got an opening for a second PA guy, the guy to read the commercials, I said, there is only one guy you should talk to, and it's Darron Story.
Yeah.
And they didn't even call you. It really pissed me off. Yeah. Sorry for the language.
It's okay. It's all right. But, God had something else for me.
That's
because I work on Sundays, right? Yeah. Just like the Chiefs do. And I would not have been able to fulfill one of those missions. And obviously, I think God had something else for me to do on Sundays. But I love hearing you do it. And, man, what a ride it's been.
What is your podcast? So folks who have listened to this conversation or watched this conversation on YouTube and they want to learn more about Darron Story, how can they do it?
Sure. Just go to wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever. It's the Darron Story Podcast, DarronStory, the Darron Story Podcast. And I just talk to people. I don't really have a theme, Dale, like you do, but I just talk to interesting people that might be friends of mine or people that I've just got to know recently, or I may seek people out too. Sometimes, because I see content creators. I love talking to content creators like on TikTok and things like that. So it's just, I try to have interesting conversations about a myriad of things. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing.
When you have an issue that you think you need to talk to me about, let's do it. I want you back on the podcast. And when I've got one I think you would be great for, I'm going to reach out to you.
Well, I'll reach out to Kim Whaley and see if she can come on your show. I think that would
I would love that. Really... I listened to the conversation. I don't know that I would agree with her 100%, but she's very smart, and she starts with the Constitution, which is what I start with. So we'd at least have some common ground to start from.
Absolutely. She's really smart. I was really that was a great get for me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Darron,
this is good, man.
I appreciate you being on the podcast, and have a blessed day, my friend.
You too. Take care, Dale.
All right. We enjoyed having Darron Story on for his perspective, especially on gun violence in the inner city. It's one of the topics we seem to come back to. And for other topics along those lines where we don't see eye to eye, Darron is a good touchstone to have on this program, and we will do that again. Royal Roofing and Solar, we appreciate having them on the podcast. They did the roof at my house. I mean, it seems like all my pals are the sponsors of this thing, right?
Yeah.
People that I've done business with, I believe in them, I trust in them, and every day when I drive by my own house and I see that roof that Royal Roofing and Solar put on, I know with confidence that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's keeping my house dry. Because that's what the roof is there for. Add solar to it if it's your forever home and you want to kiss Evergy or your electric company goodbye. Mike Dale is their solar expert, and he'll take you through the traps of 16 questions. And the answers that you give will depend on whether you're a candidate or what system you need. He's not going to sell you something that's not going to get the job done. So roofedbyroyal.com. Royal.com. That's the website. Or give Austin and his guys a call at 816-540-7057. They would love to put the roof on your house. And then you can celebrate it all at Funhouse Pizza. Jim Dingman, our buddy, just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Jim.
Happy birthday.
You know,
you gonna sing, Dale?
I'm not. Okay. It's past time anyway. It's past his birthday. I had a comment up about the, and we're going to get to this, the economic boycott day. And Jim, always the showman and the marketer, he said, well, you know how you celebrate the economic boycott? You get a pizza from Funhouse Pizza in Lee Summit or Blue Springs, and he put the hyperscript on there so people could know where to go. You can order your pizza online. You can go in. You can have a party there. It's a party atmosphere. It's a great place for a birthday party, anniversary party. Whatever you got going on there, the team meeting coming up because Little League is just around the corner. 2 locations, Lee Summit on 50 Highway, Blue Springs on 7 Highway. Dine in, delivery, and order what you want online. It cuts down the time as well. Funhouse Pizza, a proud sponsor, the first sponsor of Dale Carter's America. And this spring, we're going to find a way to get back to the Lee Summit location and have a fun time there. I call this next segment, and Rush Limbaugh was great about this because he said Democrats are much more entertaining when they're out of power. Because when they're out of power, they can't really do anything. And right now, they can't do anything. They don't have either House of Congress. They certainly don't have the Supreme Court. And they don't have the White House. So that's when they're entertaining. Where they're dangerous is when they get back into power. So while they're out of power, we need to just keep showing you who they are and what they are. And I call this segment, Shit You Can't Make Up. We should have had this sponsored by Terramina. What was I thinking?
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Shit you can't make up. And I want to start with Jake Tapper. And I saw this clip which just encapsulates my point. Because back when Biden was president, Darron Story talked about how back in the old days we had the 3 network anchors. They told you the news, and that was that. Well, what we saw when Joe Biden was president was all of the media, except for Fox News, was a shill for Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. And Jake Tapper not only was a shill for Joe Biden, now he's become the ultimate hypocrite after the Biden administration. Roll the clip and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline. Okay. That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You are this is so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline. You were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
Tapper has a new book out. It's entitled Original Sin. President Biden's decline, its cover-up, and his disastrous choice to run again. He wrote a book on the crime, in fact, that he committed in mainstream media.
I mean, the audacity, truly, of some of these people, and not the least of which, of course, is Jake Tapper. Joe Biden was having a hard time, even back in 2020, putting sentences together. It was very clear to anyone who was paying attention that he wasn't the same Joe Biden of even 5 years prior to that. You know what? I expect nothing less from some of these folks within the legacy media. How anyone is going to buy Jake Tapper's book and trust him at all is beyond me, but I will wish him good luck in that.
Okay, so let me distill that clip for you. Jake Tapper basically told her she was full of shit, that everybody knows Joe Biden's running circles around everybody in the White House, and he's got a little bit of a stutter, and you're making fun of his stutter. When all of us with eyes and a brain saw cognitive decline. We've seen it in our families with grandparents. I have anyway. It happens to some people around that age, and they were in complete denial. And it's like, oh, no, run, Joe, run. And then they pulled the rug out from under him. And now the same guy who said that is writing a book saying there was a massive cover-up and he's going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. Yeah, they expect, people have a very short attention span, and that's what they bank on. Literally, they bank on it. They count on it all the way to the bank.
My jaw dropped. Not covered on the podcast today. I heard yesterday that Donald Trump did a sit-down with somebody in the media. I don't know who, but he was on Fox News yesterday, and he said it was over an hour-long sit-down with Donald Trump, and he talked about his meeting with Joe Biden in the Oval Office. And Trump says that Biden blamed Obama and Nancy Pelosi for pulling the rug out from under him. Not Kamala Harris. Said no, she had nothing to do with it. Yep. But he blames Pelosi and Obama. And basically those two people are still running the Democratic Party, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, that rings true for sure. That rings true. I mean, I think Obama, he's out there on the speaking tours. He's having all these meetings at his place out in Martha's Vineyard or wherever he is. He's still, we all know he's still running.
He's got his finger on the pulse, no question. Okay, so Jane Fonda's up next. She was given an award by the Screen Actors Guild. Yeah. Because these are participation trophies. You're not running anything anymore, so we're going to give you a participation trophy. And anybody who served in Vietnam, when she was known as Hanoi Jane, when she went over and basically took the side of the North Vietnamese. Right. I mean, they've hated her ever since this, and the audacity in the speech that she made is just over the top for me.
I prefer the Film Actors Guild from Team America. Have you ever seen that?
I have seen that. What a great movie.
Okay, here we go.
Workers' power is being attacked and community is being weakened. Yes. But SAG-AFTRA is different than most other unions because us, the workers, we actors, we don't...
Workers.
We actors.
Workers. Give me a break.
We don't manufacture anything tangible.
No, you don't.
What we create is empathy. Make no mistake, empathy is not weak or woke. And by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people. A whole lot of people are going to be really hurt by what is happening, what is coming our way. And even if they're of a different political persuasion, we need to call upon our empathy and not judge, but listen from our hearts.
Okay, time out. You can cut that off there. Oh, boy. These are the same people who say orange man bad, but we don't judge. Right? You know, Republicans are Nazis, but we don't judge. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the whole woke thing, you can take empathy too far.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And you can start to get to the point where you excuse behavior. And that gets back to my conversation with Darron Story. It's like, you know, we want justice to be blind, but you got a black on black crime. Oh, I'm sorry. Little Johnny, you know, I know you didn't have a dad in your house, and so you took that gun and you killed somebody.
Yeah.
We'll give you another shot.
Love and empathy are very closely related, but very, very different things.
Yeah.
And one is good and one is not so much.
Kamala Harris did not win the presidency, but she won an award from the NAACP.
Heyo.
We got her word salad queued up.
And while we have no illusions about what we are up against in this chapter in our American story, this chapter will be written not simply by whoever occupies the Oval Office.
Thank God you're not there.
Nor by the wealthiest among us. The American story will be written by you.
Talk about hand gestures. Man, you got to watch this on YouTube because we put all these yeah, what is up with that suit?
It's like she's like a she's like a henchman in like a futuristic gangster movie.
Looks too big.
Oh yeah, for sure. But she's got the shoulders.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? It's like you know, like Blade Runner or something like that. She's like a Blade Runner henchman.
But what did she say in that clip?
Henchman maxing. Shout out Fleckus.
What did she say in that clip? She didn't say anything.
Oh, no, nothing.
She doesn't say. Okay, so Joy Reid, of course, is out at MSNBC. And what's the first thing they point to? Well, they fired the black lady on MSNBC. It's racist. Never mind the fact that her audience was caving in. It was sinking faster than the Titanic. So MSNBC made a business decision, and they took her down. So we have this clip, and I know you want to get to the hairstyles. That's what you get hung up on. But this clip is her calling out Republican women, and then in her swan song doing exactly what she called them out for.
Well, here's an alternative thought. Make your own dinner, MAGA. Make your own sandwiches. Wipe your own tears. Troll amongst yourselves with Elon and leave us alone. You got your heart's desire, the president you dreamed of, and worship instead of Jesus. And this time, you didn't even have to storm the Capitol, smash the windows, or try to kill police officers or issue death threats to poll workers. See? You did it just by voting this time. Congrats. You got your way. And he even got away with breaking the law. Yay.
My show had value. And that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And then it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you.
Yeah. So it's racist that she got fired. And you should dry your own tears there, Joy, just like you told Republican women to do. Go make your own dinner. That's what you told the MAGA women to do. Go make your own dinner. But
all right.